Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm creating a layout for the March challenge over at Mystical Scrapbooks. I'll put a link in the description box to that challenge if you want to pop over and have a look. There are prizes to be won, and it's a mood board challenge this month. I plan on using some mixed media on my background, so I'm going to use my silicone brush to give my white cardstock a coat of white gesso. I'm going to use the smooshing technique here, and to do that I'm going to use my distress ink in Barn Door. I'm going to swipe my ink pad onto one of my acrylic blocks, spray some water onto it, and then use some wrapping to just dab the ink onto the paper. I'm going to use a cut file on this page, and I have just pencil marked lightly around where the cut file will sit so that I can keep my ink in that approximate area. When the first coat was dry, I came in again just with some more colour just randomly all over it, trying to get a deeper red. This colour was actually looking more pink than red when it was dry, and I wasn't really very happy with it. So this was my second attempt at this background, and I still wasn't happy with the background, the colour. I wanted something more red, and this ink was drying off to more of a pink than a red. So I got some red acrylic paint, it was called Red Carnation, and I watered that down and used my fan brush to splatter that around over the ink that I had put on. Once I'd finished putting the splatters on the background, it still wasn't red enough, so I used a fine paintbrush and just painted dots onto the background. Still not happy with the background, I decided to add some yellow splatters, so I'm using a yellow called Sunshine Yellow, and I'm going to do the same technique. I'm going to water that down slightly with some water and then use my fan brush to create some splatters. So still not happy with the colour, so I decided to take a heavy hand to it, and I probably put too much paint on, but that's what I did. I used a sponge and that same red acrylic paint and sponged basically all over excuse me, all over the area that I'd applied the ink to. I set my background aside to dry and started work on my cut file. The cut file come from Paige Evans, and I'm going to use my Jet Black StayzOn ink and this script stamp and just stamp all over the whole cut file. The plain white was a bit too stark, and I wasn't all that happy with the layout so far anyway, so I decided to go with this stamping over the cut file to add a little bit of interest to it. The mood board is reds, oranges and yellow, so I decided to add some more colour to my cut file, and to do that I'm going to use my distress ink in Mustard Seed for the yellow, and I'm basically going to cover the whole cut file with that. So I'm using a wide flat brush. I've dipped that into a bit of water, and now I'm just going to apply that ink all over my cut file. The stamping won't move because I use that StayzOn Jet Black Ink, and that is waterproof. To add a little more interest to my cut file, I decided to use some distress ink in Carved Pumpkin and a fine brush, and just add a little bit of orange detail around the centre of each of those flowers. When my cut file was dry, I used my art glitter glue to attach that cut file to the background. Off screen, I went and splattered some white acrylic paint over the red that I'd sponged on because it was just too solid, and I wanted to break it up a little bit. I wanted to break up the colours a little bit, so I punched some circles from some plain white cardstock and stamped on top of the circles using the same script stamp and the Jet Black StayzOn ink, and now I'm just attaching those to the centres of each of the flowers. I also inked around the edge of each one with a black ink cube. So now I'm going to create some flowers to embellish my layout. I have stamped and heat embossed these flowers off camera. I didn't think you needed to watch me do that. I've used Heartfelt Creations Tattered Blossoms to do 2 flowers. I don't end up using all of these flowers actually. I've also used Heartfelt Creations Daisy Patch Flowers and another one by Picket Fence, which is called Flowers for the Picking. I've stamped all of these onto white cardstock. I also have this yellow flower that I created using this die. I have got a video that shows how I created 5 flowers using dies, and I'll link that in the description box below so you can see how I made that flower. It's very easy but very effective. To colour my flowers, I'm going to use my distress inks once again and a water brush. I'm going to just squish a bit of the ink onto one of my acrylic blocks and then add the colour to my flower. I'm going to start with the lightest colour and work my way out. I start by just adding, in this particular case, I'm adding some carved pumpkin to the centre of the flower and just going out in a variegated type of stroke so that it's not solid. And I'm going to do that for each of the layers. So I've got 3 layers in this particular flower. Then I'm going to come in with a red and start from the outside of the petal and work my way back in using the same method. So I'm using my water brush to move that ink around, and then I'm going to come in with a darker red and put that at the very end of the petal. I'm going to do that in various colours on all of my flowers that I've embossed and cut out with the die. Actually, I've fussy cut these, I think, using my scan and cut. So I'm going to do that for all of the flowers. Now I use an assortment of colours in the red, yellow and orange colour palettes, and I'm just going to put this on very fast forward, and you don't need me to tell you exactly what I'm doing here. You can see it. Next I used my flower shaping tools to shape each of my flower layers and attach them on top of each other. So assembled my flowers. Each flower, as I said, has 3 layers, and each one is shaped before it's attached. This particular flower I shaped from the top, and the other flower I shaped from the back. So one curls up and one curls down. I have a video showing how I shape my flowers, and that's the same video actually that the yellow flower that I showed you earlier is in. So I will put a link to that video in the description box below. I don't end up using all of these flowers either. I only end up using this one, so the fuller one, and the little white ones. Now that my flowers are all assembled, I'm going to start work on my photo. I'm using my emery board to file around the edge of the photo, giving it a fine white border. Then I've matted it onto some orange cardstock and then added some old cardboard box to the back so that when I attach it to the layout, it's risen up a fraction. Now I'm going to attach my flowers. As I said, I only end up using one of the flowers that I created. I'm going to use my art glitter glue to attach all of them that I'm going to use onto my layout. So they're basically just scattered around the bottom and slightly up the left-hand edge of the photo. I always tend to make more flowers than I need, but I just put them into a box, and then if I'm doing a quick project or a card or something that only requires 1 or 2 flowers, well then I've got a few on hand. Hopefully the colour will match the scheme of what I'm going for. For my title, I'm going to use this Craft DD700 alphabet uppercase die, and I'm going to cut my letters from black cardstock. Now, off camera, I decided to put a black border around the outside of my layout, so I trimmed my white background sheet down to 11.5 and attached that to a 12 by 12 sheet of black cardstock. I just felt that it needed something. It was just too, well, I guess red. It's too red. So once I had cut my title, I used my art glitter glue to attach it to my layout. I used my T ruler because I wanted to try and get it as straight as I possibly could. I used my fountain pen to draw a scribbly border around my page, and I also did the same thing around the centre of each of the flowers. So just a scribbly line, so not trying to be too neat or keep it within the parameter of the circle. Just wanted to add a bit of depth there, and I decided I needed a double border line, so I went around once again. So that's my layout for today. I hope you've enjoyed my video. Don't forget to pop over to Mystical Scrapbooks and check out their challenge. There's 2 mood boards to choose from, and as I said before, there are prizes. So if you're not already a subscriber, I'd love it if you subscribed, and if you could give me a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. So until next time, thank you for watching my video.